Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Daily Healing Journal, where I'm sharing my healing journey in real time. And most of this healing is from narcissistic abuse, but also just learning other lessons in life. I've learned some very hard lessons in the last 6 months of my life, and I'm turning over a lot of rocks. And so, welcome back. And today we're going to talk about how to handle verbal attacks without losing your own peace. How to not react and respond with power. This is something that I wish I had known how to do better in my past. So I'd like to share this with you. It's something that I've learned through a lot of the cognitive behavioral therapy that I've done and learning about how they want a reaction. They really do. Because especially if they're a narcissist, that's how they get their fuel supply. So we're going to talk about how you're not going to give them any of that. And then going in and asking yourself, does this make me feel better or worse? So, really, the key here, the verbal attacks, especially with narcissists, the more calm you stay, the freer you are of the burden that they're trying to give you. So, we all face verbal attacks at some point. It could be somebody at the grocery store who's rude to you. It could be a teacher, a friend. It could be a complete stranger. It could be in a relationship. It could be with a family member. It can happen anywhere. We've all been there. We've also been on the other side of it, right? And I like to be very transparent. I'm not perfect. I've not been perfect. Nobody's perfect. What I'm doing is I'm hacking my own behavior. I've lost a lot of people through this process. It embarrasses them. It makes them uncomfortable, and I don't care anymore. And I'm becoming a better person because of doing this. I feel better about myself. I'm starting to build a better life that matches what I want. So this is the type of stuff we have to be selfish with. So again, whether it's from a stranger or somebody we thought we trusted the most, it can hit really hard. And I have been reactive in my past unpredictably because a lot of times I was holding it in for so long so that I didn't lose my patience and it would bottle up, right? And narcissists love this type of stuff because they're just waiting for you to explode with anger. When you do that, it gives them fuel. And I would get on this tendency of making these patterns of reacting because I finally couldn't take it anymore. But I kept justifying why these people were doing these things to me. And I was trying to make sense of it because I just wanted it to work, whether it was with a friendship, whether it was with a family member, or whether it was with a romantic relationship that I was in. I did this in all of my close relationships. It doesn't make all of these people bad people. Some of them are bad people, okay? We can't excuse everybody. And I had bad behavior in moments. And it was hard for me to acknowledge these things because I was so confused and I was gaslit. And I'm learning now, especially to the point where I started to normalize documenting everything in my life and recording things, filming things, writing things down. And I mentioned this in my last video where that is not normal behavior. And if you feel threatened, you need to get out. If you feel like you should be documenting your life just in case you may need it someday to stay safe or stand up for yourself, I thought honestly that I was documenting this stuff so I could then show the person and say, hey, look, when you are drinking too much or when you are in a rage, this is what happens, and show it to them. That only worked like once or twice. And for whatever reason, I just kept doing it. And I think it's because that dopamine hit and that confirmation that you get when it works and you're so desperate for something to work, but they keep throwing these crazy things at you. This is when it can get really toxic. And if you start to react, you're going to lose your peace. And it's really hard to walk away. And if you're in a situation where you don't feel comfortable walking away yet, I get it. Welcome to Key West. That was a little plane. So hang in there. We're going to talk today about how to get through this, okay? There is a way to disarm the situation. You can disarm the narcissist. It's not easy, but there are steps, and we're going to work through it today. This does not involve fighting back. And this, once I was pushed and pushed and pushed, I would then fight back. And then what would happen? These people would become very quiet and their demeanor would change, and they would literally enjoy watching the reaction. And then it was even more infuriating, right? So these are things to look out for. Watch these people's facial expressions and body language when you start to react. If they immediately become the victim due to your reaction of something that they provoked, this is bad stuff. This is messy stuff. This is stuff that you should just walk away from. But if you can't, and you're in a situation where you just need to disarm this person and find your peace again, we're going to talk about that right now. So we've got to talk about this emotional awareness. And I know, especially for those of us who have a hard time with focusing on multiple things all at once, this can be difficult because if you're busy watching someone else's behavior and trying to remember and take notes to yourself, like, okay, so what am I supposed to do again when this person starts attacking me? So I understand that, because that's where I struggled too. And then all of a sudden you get into that fight or flight, and then all that stuff goes out the window and you just start reacting. The best thing for this right off the bat is to breathe. And if you just breathe in through the nose and breathe out the mouth, and try to not make it too obvious. So practice this before you say anything. This is going to regulate your system in your body and your mind and your spirit and your vibe. It's really that simple. We are not targets, okay? We are living creatures. We are human beings that deserve respect, and we are not targets. I've been a target for a lot of things throughout my life, even in my career. People have made fun of me on TV. People have made fun of me in my family. I was always an easy target. Talked about this in my last video. And the reason is because I'm different. The reason is because I entertain people. So I think that by nature, even if these people aren't doing it on purpose to be mean, it's easy to make fun of me, like, oh, she's the weirdo of the family. She's the weirdo of the bunch because she's the artist. Okay, I definitely will claim that I am not the norm. But I like to think, and I actually know, that my weirdness is actually a gift. And not being the same as everyone else is something that I am proud of. I get bored with doing what everybody else does. But again, these are going to invite attacks. These thoughts of being different and knowing you're different. I don't try to be different. In fact, I had to try to fit in. And anytime I ever did that, it never worked. It never felt right. So I just stopped doing that. The thing is, and Winona used to say, sometimes being different is lonely. And it is lonely sometimes. But just remember, if you breathe in and let it out before you say anything, you just sit back and go, interesting. Now, this is really going to confuse people if you weren't always this way. And you're going to notice different behaviors from other people. They may even try to attack you harder when you do things like this. So during Christmas time, when I went through a really scary situation, I actually didn't react as much as I normally would have. And it infuriated the person that was attacking me and abusing me. And these are really strong words that I shied away from using for a long time because I didn't want to throw anybody that I loved under the bus. And that's not what I'm doing here. But I do believe in authenticity and honesty. And I think that by sharing this with you guys and sharing it for myself, it's allowing me to process this, and it's allowing me to heal and hold myself accountable of just, first of all, the truth, second of all, my growth, and third, giving back something that I've learned. And I learn something every day. So what I learned was when I didn't react, okay, and this person kept coming and coming. Unfortunately, this person got in my face. This person threatened my life over something absolutely ridiculous. It was their opinion of a choice I made in my life. And they attacked me and said there's something wrong with me, that it never works out with relationships. And in my head I'm thinking, well, yeah, because I attract the wrong thing and I'm constantly getting these attacks. But because that's what I normalized in my childhood, I was normalizing it in my adult life, which meant I was repeating patterns. But I knew inside it wasn't going to be good for me, and I had to walk away from a situation. And because this specific person disagreed with my choice in doing so, it made them mad. Okay, here we go. Welcome to Key West. Here they come. All right. So again, you guys, this is really tough stuff because the people that sometimes love you the most, if they are not healed and if they have a lot of backed up trauma from their childhood and they're older, these could be family members, friends, doesn't matter. These people are going to take out their trauma on you, which means attacking you. And when you remain calm, for me, I remained very calm for me in this situation, and it began to get very scary. So it got to call law enforcement because I was being attacked. And so, you know, these are the things that I have to remind you when I'm telling you things that I've learned that have worked for me in healing. If you are in danger, don't try to use these tips to get out of something if your life is in danger. Please don't make that same mistake that I did. Of course, I was somewhere where I had no car, I had no way out, I was in the middle of nowhere. So, these are situations, and it was the unthinkable for me. But I think that when I'm talking about these things, by the way, I know that some people are trying to figure out what happened. If I told you, you wouldn't even believe the story. It's so crazy. And it's got so many moving parts in it from multiple people that used to be in my life, that all of this information that I'm giving you guys is a collective box of lessons that I've learned, not just by one person, but many. And having to go into where it's uncomfortable for me and hack this stuff about myself and figure out why I was continuing to tolerate this behavior. By no means am I telling you to tolerate this behavior, okay? I'm just telling you there are ways to get through these attacks, especially if they're from a stranger or somebody that you don't want to speak to anymore, or maybe it's even a client. So, one of the things that I have used recently is if people are nasty to you, let's just say somebody says something really mean to you and it hurts, and maybe it's a trigger for you. You can breathe through the nose, out the mouth, and then ask them, does that make you feel good when you speak to me like that? And just pause and see what they do and what they say. Now, if you're dealing with somebody who has the ability to feel empathy, they're going to probably take a step back and go, wow. And think about that. If you're dealing with a narcissist or a psychopath, these people are going to find a way to spin it around and or defend themselves and push it on you. And if they don't, it is a verbal act. It is not real. These people are incapable of being empathetic. So a lot of this stuff might get you to a safe space, but don't waste too much time if you're dealing with a narcissist. And not many narcissists are actually self-aware narcissists. And so, and again, I said in my last video, I was like, am I the narcissist? Like, what's wrong with me? Am I selfish and this and that? And I was just trying to protect my heart. I was trying to protect who I am because it was being ripped apart so many times in a row. So just know that you can ask these people, hey, does it make you feel good to speak like that? This shifts the dynamic and it puts the responsibility back on that person who's attacking you. And when they're throwing darts, they will be stopped in their tracks if you say something like this to them. So we are not targets. So if somebody's throwing bait, we don't have to take it. Just because someone says something doesn't mean that it deserves a reaction. You can use this stuff even when you're on social media. There's a lot of stuff that gets said, especially when people's emotions are triggered, whether it be due to politics or opinions on decisions that are being made in their state or country or whatever it is. And everyone has the right to feel the way that they feel, but be careful expelling that kind of energy. You're probably not going to change anyone's mind by a post that you put on the internet. So just keep in mind, not every invitation to chaos requires you to RSVP. The thing to remember about these people who are attacking you, they're not self-aware, and they may accuse you of attacking them. And there's a fine line between attacking people and expressing how you feel in a healthy way. And if you've done that and it makes these people uncomfortable, those people are probably not for you, or they're not able to be the person that you might need them to be to have a healthy relationship with them. And you can't change these people. Sometimes they're just on a dead end road. You don't need to follow them there. And just remember that responding doesn't mean weakness. It means that you know your power. And notice that I said respond, not react. And just remember, silence is a response too, and I have people that I love dearly. They're giving me the silent treatment right now. I wanted to understand why, and I learned, you know what? I'm going to let them do that. And if they think that this is the way to handle it, then that's the way that it's going to be for them. Now, is it changing the dynamic between me and how I view this person or these people? Absolutely. And we can only deal with what we can at the time of realization for what's healthy for us, right? And what's healthy for you might be something completely different for someone else. We have to respect that about people. I don't necessarily like silence. I think that passive aggressiveness is really a bad use of space when you could use your behaviors differently to be a lot healthier. But again, I have even found myself in a situation here and there where I need to be distant and silent with certain people in my life. And, we can cast judgment all we want, but at the end of the day, it's important that we listen to that and understand that, and just know that just because we can use these tools, other people have the right to use them towards us as well. I'm not going to sit here and wear a little tiara and tell you that I'm perfect. None of us are perfect, okay? This is about hacking our own behaviors, and then also remembering that if we're around people that are constantly throwing triggers our way, you have to step back and ask yourself if this is somebody you want to be around. So keep in mind with narcissists, when they're throwing things at you, right? They cannot be held accountable for bad behavior. They only want to be the hero. And if you go and you tell them that their behavior that they're showing does not work for you, that's going to really make them mad. And they're going to turn it around and say, you're always complaining. It's your fault that I drink. It's your fault that I do this. If I was happier because you weren't always on my case, I would be blah, blah. Okay. Again, it's the blah, 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 me, blame. So just don't react. People who thrive off control and emotional chaos, they hate it when you don't react. They want the blow up. They want the guilt. They want the confusion. That's their energy exchange. That's what they want. Don't fall for it. I fell for this so many times, and then I ended up feeling crazy because I couldn't make any sense of this. And that's why no reaction is best. And then ask them. And you can even ask, do you hear how you sound right now? Or does that make you feel better? It cuts right through their mask. So just know you're not crazy. They just can't control you anymore. And I noticed when I started to not allow someone to control me, they got worse. I was so stuck down the rabbit hole that I even knew that these behaviors were bad, and I was still trying to be around these people. And I stand back and look at myself and go, Kristen, what were you thinking? What were you thinking? I wasn't thinking. I was in fight or flight mode, and it was passed off onto one person after the other. And I realized that almost all my pillars in my life were a dysfunctional makeup of bad behavior and making me out to be the bad guy when I finally put my foot down and said, hey, this behavior is bad and it doesn't work for me. Creating boundaries really, really got under the skin of a lot of people that were in my life. They made it seem like I didn't have a right to create a boundary after all these years. They are very wrong. So, one thing I want to leave you with is something that I've really struggled with. You are not wrong for feeling hurt, okay? And I'm not somebody who's going to sit there and want to feel hurt all the time. It's just not my MO. It's not what I like to do. It's not how I like to feel. But I had to learn to live with my feelings long enough to go, why do I feel that way? Why am I saying these things? Why am I reacting this way? How can I improve myself? And what is it that I need to discover about not only myself, but my surroundings and my childhood and behaviors that I learned, even if they were from other kids in school? You're allowed to change. You're also allowed to grow stronger, quieter, and more peaceful in the face of this chaos. You are not a target. You're a whole human being who's learning to set better boundaries. Okay? That's what I am. That's what I'm doing. And in the meantime, don't be fooled by people who are trying to make you out to be the bad guy because you're doing this. They cannot understand it. They just can't. And as much as we want them to, the more we react and the more we try to figure out other people's behavior, the further we get from being able to keep ourselves in check. Which is why I'm here to remind you that it's okay to be selfish. When you're selfish, you can be a better person. This selfishness does not mean that you don't care about people. This selfishness does not make you a bad person. Okay. And I felt guilty for so many things that I didn't do. And then I would try to reframe and redesign a situation over and over again just so I could fix it. And I was reacting and becoming a person that I didn't even recognize anymore. And some of these experiences have taught me the greatest lessons of my life, but it has been one of the hardest chapters I've ever gone through. And I've pretty much gone through this alone. And I want to thank you because I don't feel as alone because of you guys. But I also have some really great friends out there. And I've learned who my true people are. And the people that know me and have gotten to know me for who I truly am, very, very thrown off and confused as to why these other major pillars in my life fell apart. And I'm confused about it too. But at the same time, I can't sit there and take the abuse and sit there. I did the non reactive thing. It actually made matters worse in a couple of other situations. And then there were other times where I did react because I was scared. And, there were people threatening their lives, and I was trying to understand why. And then it was being blamed on me. And there were just so many things that outside looking in, if you didn't live under my roof with me and this other person, you would have no idea. And you'd easily be convinced by that person that I was the crazy one. And that's partially because I was reactive, because I was so tired of being provoked. And there would be times where there was a beautiful day, right? And everything was great. And out of nowhere, it was like this person would just pick and poke and then pick and then poke and push and shove. And until I reacted, and I just felt like, ouch, like, okay, enough is enough already. And this person would go through these cycles of waiting for my reaction to just in the end completely pull off all these masks. I never would have given this person a chance if I'd known the truth from the beginning of things that they told me in the end. I never would have given this person a chance if I had had these tools and known how to identify this bad behavior, how toxic it is, and how I started to slowly normalize these things because the commitment got stronger and stronger, right? And I was still reactive this whole time, thinking that it was going to get better. And that was the brainwashing. That was the gaslighting. So just stand there and try to be calm, non reactive. And if it's really bad, walk away. All right. I hope that helps you. I know it's pretty simple, but the concept does work. All right. We'll see you guys next time very soon. I hope you have a great day. I love you. Bye bye.